It might be time for Jonah Williams to just, well, pick a sport.
Yards shy of the record. Williams breaks a hole. Williams had a record book. Ricky Williams runs to the Hall of Fame. Touchback. Ricky Williams, touchdown.
Young from the shotgun. Back to throw. Vince looks. Under pressure. He'll tuck it in run. Vince to the 5. Young. Touchdown, Texas. Touchdown, Vince Young. He's done it again.
Longhorn Nation, we're back.
Welcome into another edition of the Texas Longhorns on SI podcast. I'm your host, Matt Galatson, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Zach Dimmitt. Zach, we're going to get into March Madness in the second and third segments of the show, but I want to start off today with some unfortunate news for both Texas baseball and Texas football that hit them pretty hard on Monday. According to a release from the University of Texas Athletic Department, Jonah Williams injured his shoulder and it will require surgery while he was diving to make a play for a baseball. And he will miss the remainder of the baseball season, and by proxy, there is no shot that he will be involved in spring football either. I mean, he was going to be playing baseball this whole time, so he wasn't going to be involved anyway. But it's really an unfortunate blow for both sides. Number one, for baseball, because he was a hell of a player. He was hitting over 300, and I'm not a big baseball guy, so we're not going to get too into his baseball impact in terms of what he does on the field. But obviously, he's an athletic specimen. He's a freak. He's one of the best players on the team, and also it hurts in football because not only is he knocked out for the baseball season, but he can't be involved really in football in any way, shape, or form outside of like maybe the film room because he's going to be recovering and all of those things. Of course, he is reportedly going to be ready by the start of the 2026 season and perhaps fall camp. But it brings up the question, Zach, and one that I wanted to pose to you and to our fans who, comment your opinion below. But is it time for Jonah Williams to just pick a sport already? Like it's been 2 years of Texas having a 5-star safety and a 5-star baseball prospect, and he hasn't been able to finish really with both sports in either capacity because of injury or because of interference from one or the other. So it's like I think that at this point in time, like if you want to be a football player, if you're Jonah Williams, you can't have stuff like this happen. You have to focus on football. You have to focus on your health. You have to focus on improving your body. And likewise, on the baseball front, you can't if you want to pursue baseball for a career, you can't be playing football in the fall because the same thing could happen, and it could put your baseball draft stock or your baseball future in jeopardy. So I say the answer is yes. Obviously, selfishly, I'm going to pick football because I watch it a hell of a lot more, and it's what the majority of us watch. I believe. I don't think that that's a hot take. I do think that he has a chance to earn more money playing baseball because there's stupid money in baseball these days. But for me, pick one. I prefer football, but just make your decision, young man.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there when it comes to which sport he should choose, because baseball actually has a better path for more money. And of course, we'd love to see him in football, but if I were really good at either sport or at both sports, I should say, I'm probably choosing baseball because MLB players are filthy rich, and it takes a while to get up to that.
A lot less CTE too.
Right. And there's less injury. I mean, you have longer careers. Baseball is, in my opinion, a much better path if you have the option to do that. But like you said, I agree. Selfishly, I would like to see him contribute on, the football side of things, but it's just kind of a weird situation for Texas fans. We've seen guys in the past be able to play multiple sports. But when it comes to Texas, I don't think this is kind of a new thing for a lot of fans, seeing, Jonah Williams, how his injury is kind of impacting both sports at the same time. Of course, football is not in season, but spring practice is a big deal. And especially when it comes to the team building chemistry and figuring out what to do with depth. And if Williams is out for extended time until the fall, that could impact potentially the way he's able to catch up on things. Because after all, it is a new defense under Will Muschamp, so it's not like it's going to be super easy to grasp right away. If he's just on the sideline, you learn a lot quicker when you're on the field, and he won't really have a chance to do that for a couple months now. So, definitely an unfortunate situation. I feel for him because on social media, a lot of people are already saying that he's been making a mistake with some of his choices about not picking a sport. And I think, he's just a college kid. It's probably tough to hear some of those things because he's passionate about both. He's good at both. If you're playing collegiate football and collegiate baseball at the same time, you are a one of one, athlete, and there's millions of people who wish they could at least play one, and you're doing both. And so, I'm glad he's pursuing his passions, but I know it's probably hard to hear some of the criticisms from people about, picking one or the other and making that choice. And so we'll have to wait and see what happens. I do think that if he is going to make a decision, it probably wouldn't come until after the football season, because there's no reason for him to say, which one he's going to do right now. There's just no point. So maybe after the football season, because we know he'll probably play then, he can make that decision. But it's really tough, and I feel for him. And I feel for the Texas fans also that have been really excited to see what he can offer. But yeah, you're gonna have to pick one, in my opinion, regardless of what that is, because your impact is going to be much stronger if you pick one where you're kind of spread thin if you're doing both at the same time. So gotta wait and see what happens with this. There's still a long ways away until he's able to probably take the field. So it's still something that we're gonna have to be following over the next couple months.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems like he's having some fun with it, with all the noise online, because some people have mentioned him on Twitter. Zach Barnett from Football Scoop didn't tag him or whatever, but he tweeted the 5-star safety's attempts to be a 2-sport athlete have so far turned him into a 0-sport athlete.
Yep.
And Jonah retweeted it.
Yep.
And he's retweeting some things like that. He's responding to people. One tweet from CJ Vogel read, Jonah Williams' last 4 semesters of athletics have been shortened due to injuries. Senior season football, he broke his collarbone. Freshman football and baseball, he had a hamstring issue, and now sophomore baseball season, he's had a shoulder issue. Williams is an elite prospect in both sports, but it's probably time to pick one before 4 years pass, and we've seen him full time in neither. And Jonah responded with a laughing face emoji. So he's like, he gets it. I think that he, after this injury, probably realizes maybe I should pick one and stick to it. And whichever team he chooses, football or baseball, it's going to be a big blow to the other one. The fortunate thing for both teams, they have plenty of talent surrounding that roster, like Texas and the safety room on football. They've got Zealous Hicks, they've got Jelani McDonald, they've got Derek Williams, they've got Xavier Filsaime, they've got some young guys too. And baseball, they're still one of the most talented rosters in the country, and they're they've only have one loss this season for a reason. So both will be okay, but both would really, really, really like to have him as well. So we'll see what he ends up deciding. I would just really like to see him patrolling the middle of the field back there and just, doing some Ronnie Lott stuff if he can do it in football. But that's just me. We'll see where it goes.
Another quick note on that. He's already burned his red shirt. Or he can still use his red shirt, but he played in 7 games this past year, so he didn't have the option to do that. And so, kind of puts him in a weird situation there because you see some true freshmen being able to maybe utilize that red shirt and get another year of eligibility. But 7 games last year, so he was kind of in the rotation, pretty significantly there the back half of SEC play. So we'll have to wait and see what happens when it comes to the rotation at safety.
Yeah, and that medical red shirt is now out of the question, at least for this year. Maybe he, maybe something happens later down the line that he can utilize that, but we hope that it doesn't, because he's an elite prospect in both sports. He's an MLB prospect. He's an NFL prospect. He can do it all. So we'll just have to see where it goes. Let's take our first break real quick, Zach, because we have to get into Texas basketball, who by the hair of their chinny chin made it into the NCAA tournament. We're going to talk about that coming up next.
This episode of the Texas Longhorns on SI podcast is brought to you by Custom Built Trailers of Mississippi. Custom Built Trailers is the largest in-stock trailer dealer in Mississippi with a variety of options to choose from. From flatbed goosenecks to bumper pull equipment trailers and car haulers to enclosed trailers and basic utility trailers, we do a little bit of everything. And if we don't have exactly what you're looking for in stock, we can typically have your custom built trailer built in 7 to 10 working days. 0% financing options are available, and we also deliver out of state. So give Custom Built Trailers of Mississippi a call at 601-722-9581 today and let us take care of your hauling needs. Custom Built Trailers of Mississippi. If we don't have it, we'll be glad to build it.
Welcome back to the Texas Longhorns on SI podcast. I am Matt Galatson, your host. I am joined by Zach Dimmitt. Zach, Texas made it into the NCAA tournament, kinda. They're in the first four, which I still consider borderline making it. I'm not really a big fan of the idea of the first four. I think that these teams should just get in. And I don't think that you're technically in the tournament until you are in the field of 64. You win the first four and then you get in and you face whoever they would face in the next round, which I believe would be BYU, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
But Texas takes the floor tonight at 8:15 on True TV against NC State. This will be the second time they have faced NC State this season and the third time in the last 2 seasons, I believe. I believe they faced them in the NCAA tournament last year.
Regular season.
According to
yes.
Or is a regular season. According to ESPN's matchup predictor, Texas is a bit of a dog. NC State is predicted a 50.2% chance to win the game, and they are also favored by 1.5 according to DraftKings. The over/under sitting at 158.5. Texas did beat them already this year. They won 102-97. In that game, Jordan Pope had 28 points. And Dalen Swain had 14. Modest Vokatitis had 13. Cam Heide had 11. 17 and 8 off the bench from Kendall Weaver, and Simeon Welcher with 12 points off the bench as well. It was a great offensive outing for Texas. They shot 56% from the floor. They were 50% from three, hitting 16 of 32. And they also were 85% from the line and out-rebounded NC State. The chances that they're going to have that much of a hot shooting night again, going 16 of 32 from three, I don't know if that's feasible or realistic considering the way that they finished the season. But it does give you a little bit of confidence heading into this game that they do have a pretty good shot if they beat them once already this year. But it is hard to beat a team twice in the same season, as we all know. So we'll kind of have to see what happens. But Zach, this is an NC State team that won 20 games. They're currently sitting with a couple of decent wins. If they lost to Kansas by 1 point. And they've had some, they beat Clemson, they beat SMU who ended up making the tournament. They also beat North Carolina. So they've got some decent, stuff on their resume, and I don't know if they got better as the season went on, but this should be a tough test for Texas regardless.
Yeah, definitely. And, I'm kind of with you on the first four thing. Doesn't really count in my eyes if you're in the first four and you don't get anywhere past that. But this is technically an NCAA tournament appearance for Texas, and so it is what it is. You take it for what it's worth. Last year they made the first four as well, and that technically counts as making the tournament. So but I certainly think that Texas fans aren't going to be happy if another loss in the first four happens tonight like it did last season. And NC State is definitely dangerous. I think they have tons of talent. So they're kind of in a similar spot to Texas, in my opinion. Both these teams, really good offensively, really poor defensively. Both teams have some great individual talent across their roster. Both have first-year head coaches with their respective programs. and both teams did not finish the season strong at all. It's actually kind of eerily similar when it comes to both of these squads, and then you add on to the fact, like you mentioned, that they already played this season. That was in Maui, of course, and Texas made 16 threes in that game. And that was partially due to NC State's defense, but I think it was just partially just a great shooting day for Texas. If the Longhorns hit 16 threes tonight, they can, obviously book their trip to Oregon to play BYU on Thursday. I do not see it happening where Texas makes 16 threes. They're going to have to find ways, other ways to generate offense, because that was the most threes they made in the game this season, if I'm not mistaken. So I think NC State, they're not going to allow that to happen again. And on the Texas side of things, they're going to need their defense to improve, because it was Texas won that game, but they still gave up 97 points. It was 102-97. That's very high scoring. I saw some people saying that this game would be like in the 70s, and I highly disagree with that. But this is going to be bucket after bucket, in my opinion, tonight, unless both these teams suddenly just woke up today and decided that they'd be good defensive teams, which I highly doubt is going to happen. So it's a really exciting matchup. I was actually really surprised to see NC State be in the first four. A lot of people thought that they'd be a 10 seed or an 11 seed that avoided the first four. But if you're in the first four, that means you were one of the very last at-large bids, and so Texas barely squeaks in. And so we'll have to wait and see what happens. I think NC State has a lot of talent. Texas does as well. So it's kind of like a toss-up game. I really don't think that there's a significant advantage on either side. They're both pretty even, like I mentioned. So interesting stuff tonight in Dayton.
Yeah, absolutely. And I looked back, and the 2024-2025 matchup between Texas and NC State was in Raleigh for the SEC ACC Challenge. Texas won that game too, 63-59. Trey Johnson, who, God, I wish Texas had him this year. He led the way with 18 points. So Texas does have back-to-back wins over NC State over the last 2 years, and they will have a chance to make it 3. I'm curious, what Texas is going to do in this game defensively. I mean, obviously, we know that they struggle there quite a bit. NC State's got 4 guys that average 13.9, or 3 guys that average 13.9, 1 guy that averages 13.8. Paul McNeil Jr., Kadir Copeland, then Allen Lubin all average 13.9, and Darian Williams, the forward, averages 13.8. I mean, look, I don't know much about this team, because I'm going to leave that to Zach. But if you got 4 guys that are averaging around the same, like damn near the exact same in scoring, that means you're a pretty balanced offense. So Texas is going to have to defend a lot of guys, and they haven't been too successful at that this year so far.
Yeah, not at all. Sean Miller hasn't sugarcoated that either. When he was meeting with the media yesterday, I don't remember his exact words, but he basically was saying that there's no secret that defense has not been the team's strong suit this season, and that's definitely putting it lightly. So, but NC State, something's got to give here with these two teams. NC State lost their 6 of their last 7 games, or 5 of their last 6 games to end the season. And that's it. I'm pretty sure Texas did the exact same thing, losing 5 of their last 6. So something's got to give here. One of these teams is going to have to build some kind of momentum. And for NC State, that included a road loss in overtime to a Notre Dame team that finished with well below 500 this year. So pretty volatile results when you look at NC State, but the same goes for Texas. Texas had a few bad losses. So, but yeah, you mentioned the personnel on the roster for the Wolfpack. I think Kadir Copeland is one of the most underrated point guards in the country. He's got really impressive size, and he had 16 assists in a win on the road against SMU earlier this season. And I believe that was like the most in the ACC in quite a long time. And so if you have 16 assists in the game in college, you're doing something right as a playmaker. And so he's really impressive. I think Texas is going to have a hard time dealing with him. And then Darian Williams, who infamously was involved in that scuffle with Brock Cunningham a few seasons back in Lubbock whenever he played for Texas Tech. He's definitely familiar with Texas, having played them. This is the second time playing them this season. And then, of course, playing them whenever he was with the Red Raiders. So I'm sure he has some sort of feelings against Texas, and he's going to be motivated for this one. But yeah, lots of guys to keep track of on NC State. They got a lot of transfers that are super talented, and so it will not be easy for Texas tonight by any stretch. I think this is different than last year against Xavier, where I think Texas had the talent advantage, but I think Sean Miller gave Xavier the coaching advantage, where this season I think that both teams are going to be equally talented and both with great coaches. So it's going to be a good battle.
Yeah, Brock Cunningham sure started a lot of shit, didn't he?
Yeah, he sure did.
I love that guy. I wish they had a guy like him on the roster this year, but oh well, that's okay. Well, Zach, I don't know what your prediction for this game is. I don't really have one right now. I guess we'll give it after our next segment because Jay Bilas, one of the foremost experts in college basketball, we all know and love him from ESPN. He's one of the best in the business that does it. He's usually pretty accurate too. He made a wild prediction for the Longhorns, in my opinion. And Zach put up a story about this on Texas Longhorns on SI. So go check that out. But Jay Bilas, I mean, I think that it's safe to say this prediction is bold. He thinks Texas is not just going to win this game, not just going to beat BYU, but they're going to advance all the way to the Sweet 16 by also beating Gonzaga in the round of 32. And to me, that would be quite something, because Texas hasn't made the Sweet 16 since the 23 season when Chris Beard got fired and Rodney Terry took over. They made it to the Elite Eight, and I believe they lost to Miami. Is that correct?
Yes.
So Zach pointed that out to me before the show. He gets all the credit, not me. But, that's because he was there, by the way. We cover all these things. But that would be kind of a crazy run, because I don't think anybody really had Texas making the tournament this year at the start, especially after the way that the season started, and much less making it all the way to a Sweet 16. I mean, I think it's safe to say that that's a wild prediction.
It definitely is a wild prediction. And, every year there's going to be some sort of double-digit seed that makes a little bit of a run. And I think Texas maybe has the talent to do so, but it's still a stretch considering the way this team has played. And when it comes to the NCAA tournament, you have to have some semblance of a defense in order to advance. And Texas really does it right now, unless they can just pull something out of their hat. And it's gonna be hard to imagine that. But let's be honest, though, I actually think Jay Bilas is onto something a little bit. I'm not saying this is going to happen. Let me get that straight. But when you look at who Texas could play, BYU and then Gonzaga, if they do beat NC State, both those teams are dealing with notable injuries. With BYU, they don't have Richie Saunders, who is a key veteran guard for them, one of the best shooters in the Big 12. He tore his ACL a few weeks back, and he's been out for the season for multiple weeks now. And that was definitely a big loss, and a lot of people thought BYU would suffer because of that, and they kind of have a little bit the back half of the season with taking a few losses on their chin, and but they still have AJ DeBonsa, who is arguably going to be the number one pick in the draft this summer. He is elite. He's one of the best scorers in the country. I believe he still leads the country in points per game as a true freshman. That is absolutely incredible. So, Richie Saunders' injury is definitely one to watch, but AJ DeBonsa, if Texas does play BYU, he'll be an absolute problem for that Texas defense. And then let's say Texas does beat BYU. If they play Gonzaga, the Zags are without their second best big man, Braden Huff, who was averaging 17.8 points per game this season, 5.6 rebounds. He's been out for about a month with a knee injury. And so if an upset were to kind of line up, it kind of works in Texas's favor that these teams that they could play are dealing with these injuries. Of course, you got to get past NC State, but there is a path there, especially when you consider that BYU has trended down this season, and Gonzaga, they've had some moments this season where they haven't looked that great. Of course, they lost to Portland, which was in Portland earlier this season. And yes, Portland is a Division I program in the West Coast Conference, and Gonzaga lost to them, and that was like a historical defeat for the Zags there. And so they're definitely susceptible, I think. But of course, that's still an elite program there in Spokane. But yeah, if you look at it that way, there is sort of a path for Texas to kind of make a little bit of a mini run. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but I see where Jay Bilas' head is at, because if Texas was in a different region facing a few different teams without injury issues, it would be a lot different. But because of those factors, there is a scenario where Texas could find itself in the Sweet 16, but it's still a stretch. Don't get me wrong, still a bold prediction.
Yeah, absolutely. I just went in and changed my bracket because I didn't know these things, and Jay Bilas is right about a lot of stuff. He had Texas, like I said, all the way to the Sweet 16, facing Purdue, who's always good. They're a number 2 seed right now. He does have them falling to Purdue, but I think it's safe to say, considering the way the season began, considering all the ups and downs that this basketball team has had, the highs and the lows, the stretch that they went on in the middle of SEC play where they looked really, really good, and then the stretch at the end of the season where they looked really, really disorganized and really bad, and Sean Miller was pretty pissed off. If you had told me at any point this season that Texas was going to be a Sweet 16 team, I think every Texas fan on earth would have taken that, and they would consider that as a wildly successful season, and very unbelievable. Here's my other question to you, Zach. I mean, obviously the Sweet 16 would be a massive success in year one for Sean Miller and give him a lot, a really big platform to recruit off of, a really big platform to utilize in the transfer portal of, hey, look what I did with this group of players. Imagine what I can do with you, kind of a thing. But if Texas loses tonight to NC State, do you still consider it a successful season? Because I think I do, for all the same reasons that I just mentioned, and what they've had to deal with this year and all that. Sean Miller being able to make this, the first 4 is something that I didn't even expect. So I would still consider it successful.
Yeah, it's a little bit tough. I'm kind of in between when it comes to my answer on that one, because you fire Rodney Terry, you bring in Sean Miller, and for the second straight season, you have a first-round draft pick. Last year you had Trey Johnson. This year you have Dalen Swain. And yet, if you're losing the first 4, you're doing the exact same thing you just did last season with pretty much not much improvement. So in my opinion, I'm not sure if it would be a success for Sean Miller, because especially when you consider that Texas was looking pretty comfortable as a tournament lock after they beat A&M in College Station, and then they lost 4 straight games or whatever it was, or I guess 3 straight games. And so it's kind of tough. I'm going to say no, that it won't be a success if Texas loses tonight, because you hired Sean Miller with the hope that you can at least avoid the first 4 and just be a tournament team and potentially win a game. So it's a little bit tough, especially I guess we didn't expect Dalen Swain to be a first round pick, where Trey Johnson was seen as that as soon as he stepped on campus. But knowing what we know now and seeing how this team was able to kind of bounce back, but then fall back down, I would say it's a disappointment if they don't win tonight for the season. Doesn't mean that Sean Miller as a coach and the hire is a disappointment. I think he's going to be excellent. But if we're talking about just this season, you expected to be doing more than the first 4, in my opinion. I know it didn't seem that way once Texas started 0-2 in SEC play, but still, I don't think that fans are going to feel necessarily juiced and excited about next year if you lose tonight, in the first 4 once again. So it's kind of tough, but that's just where I stand on things. Winning the first 4, and just being in the tournament and then competing against BYU, I think that's a success. And then anything beyond that is just playing with house money. But a loss tonight, second straight season in Dayton, we're not able to advance past that. I think that's going to be a disappointment.
I think that's fair. I think you could go kind of either way with it, just depending on where you stand. You know, I do agree with you. They fired Rodney Terry because, well, on paper they fired Rodney Terry because he couldn't advance in the tournament and he couldn't win a game. I think that part of the reason they also fired Rodney Terry because it was never really who Chris Del Conte wanted. And he wanted a different personality and he had a different vision for the program. So, you know, I don't know. All I do know is that whatever happens, whether this team makes it to the Sweet 16, round of 32, round of 64, or they lose tonight, they need to invest a little bit more in player acquisition and invest a little bit more money into this program and a little bit more, you know, a little bit better of a job at talent scouting as well in the portal, because it has not been up to snuff the last couple of years. And I don't think anybody can argue with that. But, you know, like I said, 8:15 tonight on True TV, Texas taking on NC State. And we're going to sit here and we're going to hope that they advance, because we'd love to talk about this team more on this podcast, you know? And I want Zach to travel to be able to travel to some NCAA tournament games, because I know that makes him really happy. But that's gonna do it for this episode of the Texas Longhorns on SI podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and rate our podcast, and comment down below on YouTube to let us know your thoughts. We are on every major podcast platform, so just find your favorite one and you will find us there. But most also, if you comment on YouTube, it really helps us out in the algorithm and helps us grow as a channel and keep the lights on. So we would appreciate that very much. But most importantly, be sure to tell somebody you love them, and we'll catch you in the next one.